IVM.
Hi, we're Team Splainer. Welcome to the first episode of Press Decode, a weekly podcast where we take Splainer's mission to declutter the news one step further. We take the biggest, most interesting news stories of the week and break them down so you don't have to struggle with insane news pollution. Check out our newsletter for more stories and follow us on @SplainerIn to keep up with all the fun things we plan for our Splainer fam. So sit back, relax, and don't let the news give you the blues. I'm Ragini and I have with me Sara, Adya and Vagda. Take it away, Adya.
Hi, I'm Adya. I graduated with a degree in political science and psychology, ready to change the world one opinion at a time. I'm the bubbly cheerleader friend who's constantly battling the stereotype that a vegetarian foodie is an oxymoron. Current favorites, Masan, Amras, and Akshar Pathak's Instagram threads. Akshar, if you're listening to this, I'm such a fan.
He's 100% listening, obviously.
I'm Vagda. I'm a lawyer and a morning person who struggles to sleep on time. A hopeful lobbyist for the introduction of the silly face acrobatics in the Olympics. This might be controversial, but I am both a cat and dog person, mostly at the receiving end of everlasting pop culture recommendations, to which I politely say I am adding to my list. But there is no list. This is not to discount the fact that I fell hard for the hot priest in Fleabag, like the rest of the world.
Amen, sister. I'm Sarah, and given how cynical I sound most times, you'd think I'm 40-ish, but I'm all of 21. Some say I'm funny, whereas some others say I'm the joke. What can I say? The current state of affairs demand that one has ample reserves of humor, whatever be their source.
True. And I am Ragini, your host for the day. I'm what you get when a kid who watches too much TV ends up getting good grades. Basically, I'm a pop culture nerd to the extent that in my final year of uni, I went as Zeitgeist for Halloween. Anyway, one of the greatest philosophers of our time has said, pop culture was an art, now art's in pop culture. This was, of course, Lady Gaga. Today we have 3 segments for you, starting with our big story where we talk about the Pegasus investigation and how no one actually seems to be talking about it. In our Food for Thought segment, we will ponder over dignified questions such as, what is art? While discussing classic nudes. In our final segment, we will discuss our fave and least fave stories of the week and either roast or toast them. So, who is ready to be the party pooper today?
Me.
It's always Sarah. There's
Wow,
no question.
guys. I was taking it. Thank you.
All right, let's begin with our big story. About a week or so ago, 2 NGOs, Forbidden Stories and Amnesty International, accessed a global database of phone numbers. The purpose of the database was unclear, so the NGO shared these numbers with key media organizations around the world who helped identify the owners of these numbers. At least 300 numbers were from India. 40 of these belonged to journalists at leading media publications including Hindustan Times, India Today, and Indian Express. Amnesty's security lab conducted forensic analysis on 67 smartphones, of which 23 were successfully infected and 14 showed signs of attempted hacking. 10 of these were Indian phones and included the phones of 2 founding editors of The Wire. So that's what happened, but why does any of this matter? Well, back in 2019, WhatsApp informed more than 24 Indians that their phones had been targeted by spyware. A Canadian-based NGO, Citizen Lab, confirmed that the tool used was none other than Pegasus. Pegasus is a notorious spyware tool made by an Israeli company called NSO, which sells spyware, like Pegasus, to governments to help them catch terrorists and criminals.
So, journalists in India.
Obviously, sedition.
Raise your hand, Sarah.
Guys, I am just giving a brief of what happened.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Don't shoot the messenger. Pegasus also specializes in zero-click attacks that don't require you to do anything. So, for example, in 2019, it was revealed that Pegasus can literally infiltrate your phone using a simple missed call on WhatsApp. You don't even have to answer the call. Now, the media seems to be focusing on the various names from India that have been found on the list, but that's not what we want to talk about. maybe I'm just not a very tech person, but Pegasus literally sounds like something right out of a spy movie. And NSO sells only to governments. So, is no one slightly alarmed by the fact that our government is maybe probably spying on us? And they've also conveniently called privacy an elite concern. But, if we go by the 300 names on the list, that's clearly not the case.
Well, I think we can be sure that we're not on that list. Like, let's just be sure. Of
Are
that.
you though?
Yeah. I'm not that important, yeah.
Yeah. Same. I don't think I'm important enough for people to give a shit yet.
Ooh.
That's the
Again,
goal.
I'm
Moving towards.
just a messenger, guys. I have no opinion on this. Anyway, I can't say this with too much confidence, but India is still a democracy. So our government doesn't just get to play Santa Claus. They can't make a naughty or nice list out of the citizens. And speaking of hating the government, Sarah, do you have anything to say?
I can't believe you set me up on episode 1 like this, but appreciate. I think the most mind-boggling thing to come out of this whole episode with Pegasus was just how nonchalant a majority of us were. Like, most people I know who weren't seriously into journalism, politics, not the Twitter crowd, they didn't give a rat's ass about this whole investigation that honestly shook my world. Like, sure, I know I'm not on the list, but I was still terrified. Like, we're so insane. And that's when I started thinking, we're so insanely used to surveillance that the idea of even the government having access to key personal data isn't something that really scares us. An argument that
Yeah.
most of you would have heard is, "Arey, but you give all this willingly to, Mark Zuckerberg, and then you give it to Google. So what if our beloved government has it, right?" But that's exactly like my concern. We're so used to being surveilled that we're reasoning it out. We're not even offended. We're like,
Yeah.
come, let me defend you for you. And our right to privacy
Yeah.
goes out the window, and somehow we're still down to weigh out security benefits of being surveilled. But that's the problem. As these reports suggest, take, for example, the Bhima Koregaon case, where now the jailed activists were probably not just surveilled. Not that I'm defending surveillance, but even their phones could have been planted with fake evidence that led to their eventual arrest.
I think there was a report that their laptops were.
Exactly. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna stick on the realm of reportedly, allegedly.
It was, yes.
Correct. Politically.
Exactly. But that's exactly the problem, right? The spyware is so powerful that it gets hold of all your data. And as we reported in our big story last week, it gives the user of the spyware administrative or root privileges, which allows them to do much more than the owner of the phone. So, मैं ना करूँ, तुम तो आके कर ही लोगे.
Mm.
And the worst part is, they can so say, like, for if they were the Bhima Koregaon case, they could take your passwords and they can access your email accounts and use that to send emails to your contact list. And this is just one of the alarming breaches that Pegasus makes possible.
Oh, I didn't send that nude. Someone else sent it from my phone. I can claim that now.
Oh, that's where we're at. I
We're
mean,
going ahead
honestly,
early towards our next section.
setting it up.
Pegasus, guys.
But like there's been so much talk of security breaches at the highest levels in government and organizations, which for most people is like mostly fascinating than scary, right? Like, yeah, let me grab a bowl of popcorn and check out that spicy Splainer edition with the names of all potential targets. Because there are diplomats, government officials, all sorts of other highly influential people on that list. It's almost like a cheap thrill to know that even the most elite aren't safe from it. But on the other hand, if even the Rahul Gandhis of the world have to change their phones every 2 months to ensure privacy, what about the rest of us who absolutely can't afford to do that? Like, we had the story, right, of the freelance reporter from Jharkhand in our edition last Friday. And he has been writing about the unfair displacement of Adivasis in Jharkhand and encounters by security forces that are wrongly targeting these people, calling them Maoists, and the natural resources in Jharkhand that are snatched up by the rich that rightfully belong to the people. And in an interview, this guy said that he isn't in a position to finance himself for a Supreme Court case because he's not backed by some powerful organization. Like, who has the time to deal with the hassle of a court case? And his name, as well as his wife's name, is on the list, which is so alarming to me. It's not just the person, but it's all your loved ones. So it's like, if I'm a journalist trying to do some good, it's not just my life that's being surveilled. It's like people around me, which is absolutely like, what is going on and why? So anyway, like these are people on the fringes who are not being talked about enough and whose stories aren't being heard enough.
True. But like, if does it apply to us? Here we are talking about
We want to be journalists and everything. I think we can start warning our loved ones one day. One day, no, because of me, tum bhi duboge.
We're all in it together. And like honestly though, but like as an aspiring journalist who also hopes to do some good, it was really scary to imagine. Like, and more so as like a female journalist in India, yeah. Like there was this report in The Wire actually that published an article about like 60 women journalists, lawyers, homemakers who all had their phones surveilled. And it got me thinking of my own privacy. You know, the scariest part, as Sarah mentioned, is that Pegasus allows the agency hacking our phones more power than the individual. Like, our phones are a must have for each of us at most, like our most intimate, vulnerable. And to think that a whole lot of these like shady, dubious men have access to those moments in my life is terrifying. They can turn on and turn off my phone and like camera and microphone at any time for whenever they want.
You know, like, I know we're joking about like, oh, are we on the list and all, but I think that in a way, like that, even that is kind of scary. Like we are obviously we are probably not on the list, but like that shouldn't be something on your mind when you're trying to like do something. If as a journalist, if you're trying to write a story, you shouldn't be like, oh, am I on an international secret spy database? Can my phone protect? Like, that's not. I'm sorry.
Right, like we're obviously not a democracy if that's happening. Like you said, Ragini, you may be wrong about this. I think you're like 70% incorrect about it. So
I mean,
Whoa, shots fired.
well, I mean, so the idea of privacy itself shouldn't be elite, but it is a privilege to be able to talk like digital and tech privacy at all, and even more privilege to protect that privacy, like Rahul Gandhi, who is allowed to change his phone every 2 months because he has the means to do so, which the majority of our population does not have, and especially those who need it most to retain democracy in our country and be able to constantly question the legitimacy of laws and rules thrown at us by this like snoop-loving government.
when you say stuff about how it's like a privilege to be thinking about privacy and that we hear only journalists and like Twitter, gang talk about privacy and Pegasus and snooping. I wonder, if it is actually an elite concern. At least from I mean, my first idea is, yeah, probably, because that's all I hear. I mean, at least on the basis of who I hear complaining, right?
Yeah, isn't it?
But it could mean other things, like maybe that I only end up listening to the elite, which quite possibly might be true and a real insight and self-awareness. But let's say, okay, so this matter was, I was thinking about this, and I think that in the Aadhaar matter, when the Supreme Court was considering whether Aadhaar should be allowed or not, the government of India had put across this particular argument, saying this elite angle that welfare schemes like ration and livelihood hold more weight than concerns of privacy of the elite.
yeah.
But the court debunked that, saying privacy is a part of the right to life guaranteed under the Constitution. And that's the right to life of everyone, not just the elite, right? And I couldn't agree more. Like, my first thought was, yes, it's an elite concern. Maybe it's because I hear only the elite. So maybe there is actually no silence. The silence that I think, first of all, maybe it doesn't exist. And second, even if it does, the right to privacy is everyone's. So while I think that matters of digital literacy may come in the way of people understanding how to maintain their tech privacy, and that, but the law should be protective of that right, not exploitative of that.
You can actually like flip this around. Okay, maybe privacy is a concern that it's kind of like mental health, right? Sure, the elite and the rich can afford to address that concern, but that doesn't mean that people who aren't rich don't have that problem. It doesn't mean that people who can't afford therapy don't have mental illnesses. It's just it's kind of like that, right?
And here at this point, like the government, while it could be like neutral about your mental health, which it is, I guess, at this point, they're not going after some particular people and ruining their mental health, which at this point they are, right?
Yeah.
In terms of privacy, they are like, they're not guaranteeing your right to privacy. I mean, Aadhaar has been existing for a very long time without a data protection law. but they won't care about your privacy, but they'll exploit it as much as they can.
Yeah.
And we might not be on the list because we're not important enough, or like our identity is not at odds with this current establishment.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're not on that list, but soon we're going to. Anyway, my concern was I was thinking that, whether people actually think about privacy as important in their lives. And in 2017, CUTS, this organization called Consumer Unity and Trust Society, it's based in Jaipur actually, conducted a survey with some 2,400 respondents across 6 states with all kinds of educational backgrounds. And the lowest number was of people who have primary school education. And the lowest number of those, as in what I'm trying to say is 86% of people with primary school education said that they treated privacy as a fundamental right, which is a hugely high number. You would think somebody who has primary school education only would not think of these things, you know? So, and one very interesting thing that I think Sarah would just love is that the survey showed that Indians are more comfortable sharing their location data with online businesses, such as food delivery apps or taxi companies, than with the government.
I mean, you're right. I love this data fact. One of them gets me a burger, the other puts me in jail. What do you suppose?
Like, yes, Zomato, bring me my food. Why would I not give you my location?
Yeah.
I will give you anything you want.
True. You can charge me with sedition, but bring it with a burger.
Now that's a deal I'm willing to talk about.
Oh, you are? Okay, then. Okay, then you can be on the list. Okay, so I think we took it like too far into like elite concern or not, because like I think my final idea about what it is not that it is an elite concern, but that we distance ourselves from the harm. Just like we do in COVID. I mean, a lot of people don't think that they're ever going to get COVID, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like you don't picture yourself getting affected by, the lack of tech privacy.
Yeah.
Like, what is the larger picture there? Some company is going to use your data, which is part of like a huge database, to maybe rig your national election. To some people, this may not like affect them. It affects me, but to some people, it may not affect them. But when you come to the smaller picture, someone might take that data to like steal your identity. That's when you'll actually be, nahi, important hai, tech privacy.
Yeah.
Or, put you in jail for your political views. That's when you will care about privacy. So I think that's what it is. ये चीजें किसी और को होती हैं, हमें नहीं होती हैं. That kind of thinking is the thinking that makes people not talk about Pegasus.
But I also think it's because, again, like you said, I think it's because the stories of the more elite is highlighted so much more that we don't hear of non-elites whose privacy is also definitely being violated, right? Like I was talking about that freelance reporter from Jharkhand. He didn't even make headlines anywhere, and it's both him and his wife, and he's like. So I think there are people like that whose privacy is definitely being violated, but those stories are just not highlighted because these are people that are not important enough, important enough to be surveilled, not enough to be talked about. So there's that boundary.
Yep, for sure.
Well, I guess the conclusion is that stop spying on us, guys. It's not nice.
But if it comes with a burger, we can
Only
talk.
for Sarah. I am not in. I can make a burger on my own.
Put me on your nice list. I'm not about to be
Lovely.
naughty.
Yes. On that note, delicious note, we come to the end of this segment. We will be back after a short break. You are listening to the Press Decode on the IVM network.
If you love cricket, listen up. The Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast is here for you. Hosted by DJ, Varun, and me, Ashwin, we bring a fun, fresh fan's point of view to talking all things cricket. Sometimes it's just the three of us, sometimes we have guests, including current and former international cricketers. For new episodes every week, check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello and welcome back to the Press Decode on the IVM Podcast Network. We're Team Splainer, and make sure you follow @SplainerIn on Instagram and Twitter to keep up with the Splainer fam. Alright, let's get into our food for thought section. So, Pornhub, the world's best known porn... Nice, very mature, Sarah. Very mature, Sarah. Please.
We have barely begun.
We haven't begun the story, Sarah. Okay, the world's best known porn site has a new project called Classic Nudes. It's an interactive website and app and offers a creative guide to erotic art displayed at premium museums around the world. But museums like Louvre and Uffizi are not amused at this attempt at art education and plan to sue for copyright infringement. Now, we really could have a deep discussion here about what is art and the nature of art, etc., etc. But since Pornhub is involved, we need to be very mindful of the fact that they are known for some of the most out-of-the-box marketing techniques, and this is probably nothing more than that. But nonetheless, this story is quite funny, and honestly, we would never miss the opportunity to make these many puns. So, without further ado, let's talk about sex, baby.
My favorite reference.
Just right off the bat with the puns.
But before we get into this, fair warning, we have some really fiery takes coming. So hear us out, right? Before you make up your mind. Anyway, I'm just going to start with the funny story. As soon as we added this item to our headlines in our Explainer edition, our collective thought was, oh my God, this is great Instagram content, right? Because nothing sells like sex, obviously. But then we got into a discussion about whether an erotic painting would meet Instagram's community standards, which by the way, it does. That got me thinking that both of these so explicit about their display of nipples and vaginas and penises, but one is like noir and artsy while the other is just lewd and vulgar. But like,
can I just say to anyone who doesn't know the painting we're talking about, please go to Splainer Inn's Instagram and check out this amazing piece of art that we have discovered. It will pinch your heartstrings, guys.
with the puns. But like, okay, my thought was like, who decides that these like nudes at the Louvre are art and all, and Pornhub is like vulgar? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, right? Pornhub has had its share of like unethical videos on its website and non-consensual minor content streaming and all of that. But how do we know that the subjects of nude and erotic paintings had given their consent to the artist? And what must that have looked like? Was that a concept? Did it matter? I don't really know. Exhibit A is the fact that the artist for the painting that Ragini just referenced, that we used as our cover image for this post on Instagram, is unknown. Just think about that for a hot sec.
The artist is not known. What will you know about consent?
There we go. If you don't know who painted that nude, like the question of consent is definitely a gray area.
Are we sure people understand consent today?
That's the best question so far, Sarah. And I have no answers for you. Anyway, Pornhub is banned in India, as we all know. But this particular project called Classic News...
No, we don't all know. You might know.
Oh,
Vagda, you took too long to figure out you don't know.
That's on you, Vagda.
No, I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about our listeners.
Right. Of course you are.
We are all initiated.
Okay, I really think that I would think that 80%
News sources.
of our listeners would. Anyway, so that is banned in India, as most of us know. But this particular project called the Classic Nudes was very much available for consumption the day this project came out. Unfortunately, if you are curious to check it out now, it isn't available in India anymore. Yes, sad faces, Ragini, I see you. But for our non-Indian listeners, we will put the link
Thanks, Adya.
in bio.
My mother was listening, bro.
That's on you.
Of all of us, Adya is the only one who knows that it was there and now it
Yeah.
isn't there. Just saying.
Stop
What a
trying to
lie.
deflect.
What a lie. Vagda said she knew. She just was thinking for the listeners, not for herself.
So Vagda and Adya. Ragni, you and I, we good.
Sarah, you literally giggled at Pornhub. I'm sorry. There is no way. Anyway, so this project is very much porn, and I don't think anyone watching it can deny that. So, like, is this just another case of elitism in art and the Louvre and whatever that is?
Okay, so talking about like dichotomies, hear me out. I know you gave us a warning about like fiery takes, but feel like just hear me out before you cancel me. But we've all heard about the Raj Kundra case. He's been arrested, and his crime, the production and distribution of pornography. Now, immediately you're thinking of some shady business. And honestly, based on the news reports, I'm seeing you're not wrong. He has been accused of exploiting young women on false pretexts. And since the case is still sub judice, I don't have much to say. But I think the most fascinating food for thought that came out of the whole case was his defense, and where he, Shilpa Shetty, and another actress who has allegedly acted in one of these films, they're all going ahead and parroting the same line where they are going ahead and challenging the definition of porn and saying everything that everything they make be called erotica. And I'm going to read out a quote. I don't fully understand the quote, but have a shot at it. Police is following what web series are doing these days, vulgar content, but that's not really classified as porn. Nothing in this remand shows that two people actually indulged in act of intercourse. It's not actually intercourse. It's not classified as porn.
समझ में नहीं आया. So classic case of you don't know the answer, confuse the examiner.
Oh my god.
But exactly, right? I think just like 100 marks for the most creative defense I have seen.
Yeah.
You are accusing me of X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to deny it. I'm just saying you don't understand what X, Y, Z is. मैं जो कर रहा हूँ वो art है. Excuse me.
I think our podcast can help them out, right? Considering
Yeah.
we're discussing what's
Tune
art.
in, guys, every Thursday only on the IVM Podcast Network.
Well, but I think all of this got me into thinking, what are exactly India's laws on porn? And it turns out publishing or transmitting obscene material, including porn. So I'm assuming it involves erotica as well.
Yeah, so their defense is like bullshit only. I don't understand. I mean, it's not. It includes porn, but it could include this also. So why are you fighting on the definition of porn?
Let them try. वो already jail में अब निकलने की कोशिश तो करे. Is illegal in India under a 2015 law and is punishable by up to 7 years in jail. But surprise, surprise, watching in private is technically not illegal. Sure, websites are banned like we established, and Pornhub has to come about with interesting workarounds like classic mutes. And obviously, we've all heard of VPNs. Most of you have heard of VPNs.
Sarah, I'm just gonna. I just heard from you that you didn't know Pornhub was banned in India. So what is this
Oh my
VPN
God.
conversation we're
I'm
having?
a journalist. I have to keep abreast with the news.
You have to keep
Or
on.
however you want to. However you'd like to quote that.
Oh my god.
But the fact still remains, you can't create or distribute porn in India. So basically, I'm still wondering, where do our lawmakers think all this porn will magically appear from if it isn't distributed? That's my hot take.
Fiery.
Very fiery. Have you seen their advertisements? I mean, I think I just want to go talk about a little bit of like how Pornhub does marketing. You know why it is so famous? You know why
Yes,
Sarah knows
Radha,
about
we
it
do
and
know why
claims she
Pornhub is
doesn't.
so famous.
No, but like it's not the best
Yeah.
video
Yes.
platform.
Yes.
It's not the
I
first.
believe you.
Platform.
No, I didn't do a survey on my own, but there are rankings,
Yeah.
you know.
Of course you didn't. Of course you didn't go and have private sessions.
I don't even know how to use VPN.
Sure.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Okay, yes,
So
yes.
it's not the first ever adult video aggregation site.
True.
It is not the best. It's not
True.
the only one that gives free content.
True.
So why is it so popular? Marketing.
Drum roll.
So because obviously porn is a taboo subject, not on this podcast, but they can't do traditional advertisements, right? So what is the kind of like creative stuff that they come up with? One is that high art, which is great because obviously social media restrictions are also totally bypassed with that, right?
As we established.
This is what the company, and it's like, you know how they sold it also. The project, they sold it saying it's promoting actually visits to the museums rather than like
Yeah.
promoting themselves. They said, and I'm quoting their press release, with museums finally reopening around the world as pandemic restrictions are being lifted, Pornhub wanted to do its part in stimulating the public to visit, explore, and fall back in love or lust with these cultural institutions. So it's pretending to do art education
Sure.
and like gain some, I don't know, brownie points.
Sure. I guess.
along with advertising for them. Not say, and then Louvre is like falling straight into that trap by like how we're gonna like sue you for copyright infringement. Bhai, you're only increasing their name without like anything.
Huh.
I mean, Pornhub is banned in India, but we're still talking about it. We on our first episode ever.
It's a great editorial decision.
By the way, a journalist actually took the classic nudes guided tour to the Met and wrote about it. But spoiler, I mean, I'll put it in the description, but I'm just giving you a spoiler that they were not very impressed. So
For
I
shame.
mean,
that's a bit
yeah.
disappointing, no?
a little. If it is a marketing technique, then it's expected, right? Who puts in effort?
But the marketing technique itself is genius.
It's crazy. And they're
honestly.
famous for this kind of stuff, no? There's one favorite of mine, okay, which is like nothing but like a silhouette of a hand that says DIY, America's largest do-it-yourself website, Pornhub.
Oh
That's hilarious.
That's
Oh
I
my
love it.
clever.
Incredible.
That's very clever.
That is branding, man. Pornhub isn't even available. I mean, like, and look at us. We're like going crazy over it.
They clearly play their marketing team a lot like they should.
Maybe that's a lesson for us.
That the industry itself is massive. So I mean,
Massive.
Massive.
Massive, not that sizes.
not that size matters.
Lovely. On that beautiful note, we come to an end. We will be back after a short break. You are listening to Press Decode on the IVM Podcast Network.
Hey, everybody, let me tell you a little bit about what happened on the IVM Podcast Network this week. If you are a fan of the network, you should definitely check out Naan Curry. Sadaf and Archit were joined by Keshav Chaturvedi of the Tere Mere Raste podcast. They talk about travel and food and, like how important food is when you're considering travel. It's a really, really interesting conversation. Do check that out. Let me give you another couple of quick hits to check out. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet talks to Ashim Mathur from Dolby. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth examines how Netflix is getting into e-commerce. Check out Misconduct with Raghavi and Nisha to learn about some of India's most famous criminals. And don't forget, do follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram to keep up with what's going on the network. And finally, I'd like to thank the sponsors of the network this week. They are what makes this possible. Thank you so much, Seat, Cred, Global Victoria, Bank of Baroda, Intuit, and Lenovo. We really do appreciate the support.
Welcome back to Press Decode on the IVM Podcast Network. It's time for our final segment, Toast or Roast. Okay, Sarah, do you want to start us off?
And since we've established I'm the grumpy cat, of course. But I do have an item that I didn't like. Surprise, surprise. But okay, I'm going to get into it. Feral hogs apparently release the same amount of carbon dioxide each year as 1.1 million cars.
Wait, feral hogs are what?
Wild hogs that you should check out our edition and our social media. They are, I think, very cute. But turns out they release a lot of carbon dioxide, and they do this singularly by just digging up a lot of soil and hence releasing carbon dioxide into like the air, from the soil into the air. But what pissed me off the most about this item is how we as a species we'll blame anyone but ourselves and our 1.1 million cars for pollution and global warming. Yes, those wild pigs.
Yeah, and in today's edition also we had one about a cow having like a mask on top to convert the
Methane.
that was methane to carbon dioxide.
No, but it's like, it's true. Literally, when COVID and all in the beginning, everyone was like, oh, it's that damn bat's fault. No, yaar, matlab, theek hai. The disease might have come from there, but the bat was not in charge of putting in COVID restrictions. Now your government was. So like, anyway, so I have a least favorite item as well. But oh my God, I just feel like I'm really sticking to the theme of... So okay, apparently the Apple weather app will not say that it's 69 degrees Fahrenheit outside, right? Now it just won't do it. One possible reason is that it's converting from Celsius, and 20 degrees Celsius converts to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, while 21 converts to 69.8 degrees Fahrenheit. This reason sounds very plausible, which is why I hate it. The other reason that I am on board with is that Apple, it's 2021. We need to be sex positive. Please stop it.
Learn from our podcast, man.
Exactly. Learn from Press Decode, you guys.
Okay, Magda and Adya, do you have any favorite items considering we've done the party pooping?
Yes. My favorite story from this week was in Splainer's Monday edition. It was about the universe being a donut.
Nice.
What?
Yum.
Yum, honestly, yum.
So, a new theory suggests that just like the Earth, the universe is not flat.
Okay.
For the past 18 years, scientists have been rather on board agreeing that the shape of the universe is essentially an infinite sheet of flat paper, where parallel lines in the fabric of space-time remain parallel and infinitely expanding. Did you guys understand that?
No.
No.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking of donuts.
Totally.
Like, you got me at donut.
No, but think of it like a ruled sheet of paper. So that's how like space-time looks like according to scientists all this while.
Sure.
Guys,
sure.
I'm a person who's ready to go to jail for a burger. I believe in this only because donut.
Honestly.
No, it makes sense to me. I watched Cosmos recently. So I know everything about space. Go ahead, Vagda. I'm totally on board.
So now all this while the scientists have been thinking it's flat, right? And now a recently published paper says that the universe may be shaped like a giant donut.
Nice.
And I quote from that paper: "The same way you can fold a flat piece of paper into a curved shape without changing its parallel properties. This solution would mean that the universe could be both flat and donut shaped. But this means that we live in a giant donut. How cool is that?"
Anyway, my favorite item, I'm going to go along the artsy theme that we had in our Food for Thought segment, was
Artsy, indeed.
this artwork by a Pakistani artist, Shazia Sikandar, from her series titled Disruption is Rapture. The one that we featured in Splainer, we'll put the link of the edition in our bio. But it's an animated miniature painting that takes inspiration from like the classic Mughal style of painting. It's just a more contemporary take. It's like a 30-second clip and it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, stunning. Like you need to check it out. And what makes it even dreamier, personally for me, is Ali Sethi's music. Looking at you, Vagda. That accompanies this piece. I won't go into many more details about it, but I would definitely recommend that you read up on Shazia and check out her work. We'll put the link in our bio for that as well.
Okay, that's great. And that's all we have for you. That was our show for the week. Thank you so much for joining us on Press Decode. You can catch us every Thursday on the IVM Podcast Network. And guys, please remember, don't let the news give you the blues.
Hi, I'm Zarina Poonawalla, host of the Empowering Series podcast on the IVM network. I happen to be a peak performance coach and leadership coach by profession, and I'm here to share with you productivity tools, life-altering techniques, and real-life hacks to help you achieve your maximum potential in everything you do, your relationships, professions, careers. So tune in every Monday to unleash your inner power. Be safe, be well, be empowered.
We live in an age of disruption, of immense change in every aspect of work, life, and business. But is the old way of doing things truly dead? And are we ever going to stop saying the new normal? Join me, Varun Dugirala, on Advertising is Dead every Tuesday as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, creators, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond to dig a little deeper into how we got here, what we're doing now, and where we're headed. You can catch all the episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.